Do we have a quorum yet?
I believe we need one more, but Nicole, can you verify, please?
All right, I'm counting. Hang on 1 second. Let's see. Madam Chair, we do have a quorum.
Thank you so much. I would like to call to order our Richmond Regional Transportation Planning Organization Policy Board meeting today, November the 5th. And I thank all of you for joining our meeting today. We will start our meeting with our Pledge of Allegiance, and I do have a flag. Just want you to know. So if you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, whether you mute or unmute, I'd appreciate it. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. In our earlier meeting, we did the statement regarding our virtual meeting, which we've read at every meeting, and we do it for transparency. I think that since March now, we're pretty good at this. We did learn that because our virtual meeting statement is in their meeting packet, that we're not going to be reading it. However, I will ask Nicole to take a poll verifying that or certifying that you did read and understand our virtual meeting guidelines. So Nicole, if you would do that, I would appreciate it, please.
Yes, ma'am. And I think we'll do that along with just attendance. Is that correct?
Okay, so at this time, ma'am, if we could have the roll call and certification of board.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Town of Ashland, Mr. Hodges.
Here.
Miss Barnhart. Charles City County, Mr. Coda. Chesterfield County, Mr. Carroll.
I'm here and I agree.
Thank you. Mr. Holland.
Here.
Mr. Winslow.
Here. Good morning.
Good morning. Miss Haley. Goochland County, Mr. Lumpkins.
Here, and I certify.
Mr. Spoonhauer. Miss Lascalette. Mr. Kilduff. Hanover County, Mr. Davis. Mr. Peterson.
Here and yes.
Miss Pritchard. Mr. Flagg. Henrico County, Miss O'Bannon.
Here, and yes, I read it.
Mr. Thornton. I think Mr. Thornton is here.
He is, I saw him earlier.
Moving on, Mr. Brannon. New Kent County, Miss Page.
Here, and I did read it.
Mr. Tiller. Mr. Evelyn. Powhatan County, Mr. Nordvig. Mr. Williams. Mr. Shardine. City of Richmond, Mr. Addison. Miss Gray. Miss Lynch. Miss Newbill.
Here, and yes, I read it.
Mr. Hilbert. Mr. Jones. Miss Larson. Miss Robertson. Capital Region Airport Commission, Mr. Rutledge. GRTC Transit System, Miss Tim.
Here, yes.
Miss Adams. Richmond Metropolitan Transportation Authority, Miss Dean.
Here and yes.
Secretary of Transportation or designee, Mr. Mann. Mr. Riblet.
Here and yes.
CTAC, Mr. Basham. Mr. Martin. DRPT, Mr. Brule.
Here and yes.
Ms. Dubinsky.
Here and yes.
Federal Highway Administration, Mr. Nelson.
This is Richard Duran in place of Thomas Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Duran. Federal Transit Administration, Mr. Koenig. Ride Finders, Ms. Tisdale.
Here and yes.
Ms. Ruffin. Virginia Department of Aviation, Mr. Burnett. Madam Chair, that concludes the roll call for attendance.
Thank you so much, Nicole.
Mhm.
Now moving on to,
Madam Chair, yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. You may want to circle back and allow anyone who wasn't able to signify themselves to speak up. I know that Mr. Thornton is here. He wasn't able to speak, so if he's able to unmute and certify he is present, and there may have been another person or two joining us during the roll call.
Mr. Thornton? Were there any others that you did not acknowledge your presence?
Could he do a thumbs up?
Okay.
Madam Chair, I think Mr. Lumpkins was not able to unmute or let us know that he's here.
I'm
As
here.
I-
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Sorry about that. And I certify that I read the virtual meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Lumpkins.
Okay.
And Ms. Mueller, Madam Chair, if Ms. Mueller, I think she certified quorum earlier, but just to confirm that now that we have a clear roll call, that would be appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Gregory. I can certify that we do have a quorum.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay. So now moving to administration. Our first item under A1 is consideration of amendments to our action meeting agenda.
Yes, ma'am. This is Chet Parsons. If you remember our executive committee meeting this morning, we did note that there is an alteration in the agenda. We have listed under B1 a passenger rail update from Jennifer Mitchell from the Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation. She has been pulled away at the last minute and has requested to move that update presentation to our December meeting. And then, so if it's okay with the board, we would just strike B1 from the agenda today.
Thank you. Any objections from the board? Okay. And we will move on to A2, which is the approval of our October 1st TPO Policy Board action minutes, which is found on page 2. Any discussion, deletions, revisions? If not, the chair will entertain a motion.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Second, Madam Chair, John Hodges.
Thank you, Ms. Hodges. Moved and properly second. Nicole, will you do a roll call, please?
Nicole, you're muted.
Thanks, Chet. Town of Ashland, Mr. Hodges.
Aye.
Chesterfield County, Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Holland.
Aye.
Mr. Winslow.
Aye.
Goochland County, Mr. Lumpkins.
Aye.
Hanover County, Mr. Peterson.
Aye.
Henrico County, Ms. O'Bannon.
Aye.
Mr. Thornton. Moving on, New Kent County, Ms. Page.
Aye.
City of Richmond, Ms. Newbill.
Aye.
GRTC Transit System, Ms. Tim.
Aye.
Richmond Metropolitan Transportation Authority, Ms. Dean.
Aye.
And Secretary of Transportation Designee, Mr. Riblet.
Aye.
This concludes the roll call for item A2.
Thank you. Item A3, Chair's Report. Have a couple of things. It was brought to our attention that at our December meeting, there is indeed a conflict with the governor's conference. And so it has been recommended that in December, on our December 3rd meeting, that we would cancel our executive board meeting, and we would move our policy board meeting to 8:30. And so I just wanted to open it briefly for a discussion on your thoughts. And I would think to move the meeting, we would need a motion.
Yes, ma'am.
So moved, Madam Chair. It's Cynthia Newbill.
Can we have a second?
Supervisor Holland seconds.
Thank you. It has been moved and second that we will cancel our executive board meeting, and we will move our policy board meeting from 9:30 to 8:30 on December the 3rd. Will you poll the members, please, Nicole?
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair, Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, this is David Williams. I'm not sure I'm being heard. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Okay, good. Did I miss the last roll call?
I don't think, Nicole, do you have Mr. Williams from Powhatan?
I do not. I didn't mark him down when I did attendance. So I'm going to mark it now.
I am in it. Yes, I am in attendance, and I have voted affirmatively, and I did read, the statement about our virtual minutes or meeting. Excuse me.
Thank you for letting me know, Mr. Williams. Thank you so much.
No,
I will
thank you.
include you in the record.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome, sir. And at this time, I want to ask Mr. Thornton the same question. Okay, Nicole.
All right. Town of Ashland, Mr. Hodges.
Aye.
Chesterfield County, Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Holland.
Aye.
Mr. Winslow.
Aye.
Goochland County, Mr. Lumpkins.
Aye.
Hanover County, Mr. Peterson.
Aye.
Henrico County, Miss O'Bannon.
Aye.
Mr. Thornton. New Kent County, Miss Page.
Aye.
Powhatan County, Mr. Williams.
Aye.
City of Richmond, Miss Newbill.
Aye.
GRTC Transit System, Miss Tim.
Aye.
RMTA, Miss Dean.
Aye.
And Secretary of Transportation Designee, Mr. Riblet.
Aye.
And that concludes the roll call.
Thank you. Item A3, which is the chair's report, continuing with that, I wanted to take a moment. I think that when we have those that do work in excellence, especially in this day and time, I think they need to be acknowledged. So I wanted to take the time to acknowledge Ms. Mueller. I think that Nicole represents us so well, and with a high degree of excellence. So I know the other day when we were at the Central Virginia Transportation Authority, just her recognizing not only the members, but their voices. And it's just attributed to everything that you do. And so I just want you to know that we, the board, appreciate you and all that you do for us. And you make Mr. Parsons and the rest of us look so good. So thank you so much, Nicole, for all that you do. So applaud to you.
Madam Chair, I appreciate your kind comments so very much. I'm here to serve. My pleasure. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, ma'am. Now, moving on to A4, which is the Secretary's report. Mr. Parsons?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. I did want to let everyone know, back to your chair's report, we do have a save the date flyer for the Governor's Transportation Conference, and we'll make sure to send that around to everyone if you haven't received it already. So just a quick update. And it looks like it says that there will be emails in the next few weeks with the actual registration information. And that will be from 10 until 3 on Thursday, December 3rd.
Thank you.
So into the secretary's report, there's a few items to bring to your attention. The current work efforts were included in the agenda packet, and I can scroll through those now. We are hard at work on our long-range plan update and working closely with your technical staff on those items that are currently underway for the long-range plan. We do have a number of work groups that are continuing to meet, Vision Zero work group and our public transportation work group. The public transportation work group met on Monday and had a great meeting gearing up for GRTC's regional public transportation plan. And I think the work group is going to be a valuable asset to GRTC as they move through the process of developing that regional plan. I wanted to cede the floor quickly to Mr. Hodges. I think he had an update on an effort that's near and dear to his heart.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons. Just briefly, wanted to recognize that the governor took the opportunity of the near completion of the Ashland Trolley Line Trail project to announce the quote groundbreaking and renaming of the Ashland to Petersburg Trail as the Fall Line Trail with its own logo, and he announced additional funding. It was a beautiful day, well attended, outside, socially distanced gathering, including the Secretary of Transportation, Valentine, Delegate Arid, representing the Petersburg area, and many of our TPO members and staff, as well as Bike Walk RVA of sports backers, which is helping to fund this project. And after a brief ceremony, we walked about a quarter mile of the first section to a as yet incomplete section. We're waiting to install rails, metal railing. We probably will not be able to open that section till February of next year, but we're very close. I'd like to also say that behind me is this historic section of the Trolley Line Trail in Hanover County. So with the completion of the boardwalk section, Ashland will be connected to the historic area, which will take us into out of the town and into Hanover County. So thank you all for your support and showing up. It's a great project and we look forward to more good news. Thank you, Chet.
Thank you. Moving on in the Secretary's report, just to bring you to your attention, our September work program status report. And as you can see, this is following the new format that provides some uniformity across the Commonwealth between all the different MPOs and their reporting structures. So it's, as I mentioned in the executive committee meeting this morning, we've changed the format to make it a little bit more transparent and accessible to everyone. Each section has a task title. So for here, it's 7100 program management. You can see what the task is, what the overall budget was for the year, starting July 1, how much has been billed this month, and then the total percent of funds expended. And then it also gives you a reference page back to the work program if you wanted to go back and see what the original allocation was and the purpose of the task itself. So that September report is in your packet. We do this every month, and we also have a quarterly report that goes to VDOT as well that follows a very similar format. So that was there. For your information, I'd be happy to take any questions on that.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
It's Chris Winslow, Chesterfield. Just want to go back at the risk of getting too far into the weeds, and I don't want to do that. The 49 responses received on the vision goals and strategy survey, it said its staff synthesized those responses. I wonder if staff could give us a flavor of the responses in a summary fashion.
I'm sorry, Mr. Winslow, you broke up. So you wanted some background on the vision goals survey?
Yes, sir. Wanted to see if you could give us a flavor of those responses received.
Yes, I could certainly do that. Would it be okay if I come back and do that update under other business?
Absolutely,
able to-
sir. Yes, sir.
We
Yes,
do
sir.
have some graphs and charts that I can pull up. Thank you. The next item under the Secretary's Report 4C, the TAC, the Technical Committee met in October after this group met and received an update from Barbara Nelson with the port. And I will say, I was going to go through this myself, but I believe Barbara is with us. If I can call on her, she may want to provide a brief 5-minute update on what she shared. If that's okay, Madam Chair?
Yes, it is.
Hey, good morning. Thank you, Chet, for the chance to share some what we think is really great news. And the first slide is the consistent growth at RMT, and we are just this year celebrating our 5th. The Port of Virginia is celebrating its 5th year of the long-term lease between the port and the city of Richmond. And you can see by the volumes that there's been consistent year-over-year growth in both imports and exports, and that both are balanced, which is really a testament to the sustainability of the service and the support and effort of the entire regional community to utilize RMT and the barge service. We closed fiscal year 20 with just over 41,000 containers moved through the terminal, which translates into approximately, more than 60,000 truck trips from the I-64 corridor. So it has a significant impact on the movement of the modal shift of trucks to the Marine Highway. Next slide, please. The next few slides will highlight some of the support that the TPO has provided through the RSTP program to the marine terminal to facilitate the intermodal movement of goods. And one is a bulkhead repair. We work the barge at the north end of the wharf, and there are what are called cofferdams at that north end of the wharf that were severely compromised due to subsurface drainage issues. And a repair was essential, and the cost was about $1 million. And the TPO worked with the port to allocate the funds to advance the emergency bulkhead repair. And we are very pleased to say that as of the end of October, the work effort has been completed, and it's now safe to work the barge at that end of the terminal. And it's also important to note that although we may have extensive frontage along the James River, the substructure of the wharf, it can only support and really work the crane and the barge at that north end. So it was a critical investment and repair that we really appreciate. Next slide, please. This is a project that has been underway. We received RSTP funding from the TPO in 2018 to advance improvements to our gate to allow us to have better two-way traffic, and in particular with dimensional cargoes, project cargoes, oversized cargoes, in addition to the regular traditional containers that RMT caters to. In addition to the gate improvements, there is a proposed drop lot, which is very important in terms of providing safety and security for folks that business interests that want to pre-position a container at the gate in advance of the gates opening. At the present time, they are parking along Deepwater Terminal, which is Deepwater Terminal Road, which is not in the best safety interests of either the cargo owners or the motoring public traveling through that area. And so this would provide a safe and secure option for the gate to to effectively work a 24/7 gate without the operational costs associated with a 24/7 gate. Containers can be dropped on their chassis in a secure drop lot. It will have cameras to provide oversight and protection, and it would remove the storage of the containers from the roadway. And I think that's the last slide, Chet, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so anyway, just in conclusion, the vision that the Richmond TPO had in 2008 to commit demonstration funds to support an initial barge service, the barge service that hoped it could. It is producing everything and more that we had hoped that it would, and the extensive support and partnership of the TPO in Richmond and other partners that we've been able to make this happen. So again, thank you for the opportunity to comment, and thank you for your support.
Thank you, Ms. Nelson. To close out the Secretary's report, I wanted to give a brief update on the MPO boundary discussion, and then a quick update on the Central Virginia Transportation Authority. So as you can recall, last month in our October meeting, the policy board referred an MPO boundary discussion to the TAC to bring back a recommendation to this body at your December meeting. So the TAC is hard at work and has met to discuss this in their October meeting, and will meet again next week to continue that discussion and finalize a recommendation to you. I think that my early indications are that TAC is fairly unified on direction to take, and I'm confident that at your December meeting there will be a recommendation that everyone can understand and get behind. So we're looking forward to bringing that back at our December meeting. The CVTA update, our finance committee and our technical committee are both meeting regularly and working on continuing the organization and the startup tasks that are necessary for the CVTA to function well. And that includes things like assessing banking services, financial advisor services, working in conjunction with JRTC, as we mentioned earlier, on the regional public transportation plan, putting together an RFP for the transit governance study that is required to be reported back to the Governor and General Assembly, and continuing to work with us as staff on the tools that are going to be needed for regional project prioritization. Once we're able to get all of the startup tasks out of the way for the CVTA, then we can really focus on transportation work and putting together those regional priorities. So staff is excited about the possibilities, and we're running around right now trying to make sure everybody is served as they need to be. So we could certainly go into that in more detail if there's any questions, Madam Chair, and I'll work between now and the other business item to get that vision and goals update for Mr. Winslow.
Thank you. And thank you for your report. And thank you, Ms. Nelson, for being here to give us an update. Good seeing you. And now we'll move on to new business. Of course, we said that item 1 would be placed back on our December meeting. So we will move on to item 2, which is the I-95 Commerce Road corner study. And Mr. Parsons?
Yes, I am going to work to share the screen with Paul Prideaux, who's here from Michael Baker, and he's going to walk us through the recommendations that were made by the technical committee at their October meeting regarding the I-95 RMT Commerce Road Corridor Access Study. I think Paul and Barb as well, Barb Nelson is here to provide some background. We've been working with Michael Baker for about a year now, and putting together this corridor access study with recommendations. And Paul and his team have done a great job in leading the study and putting together not just a regular report, but also some tools for the general public to be able to take part and understand the implications of the study on everyone else. So let me see. Nicole, you may have to give Paul permission.
And I've also got a button that says share my screen. I don't know if that would work or not.
Give it a shot. See if that'll work, Paul.
All right. It's green, so that's something. Share. Did your screen change? Do you see I-95? Okay.
Got it.
I think it's working. So thank you, Chad and Madam Chair. I'm happy to be here. Again, my name is Paul Prideaux. I work with Michael Baker International. It's an engineering and planning firm that happens to have a local presence as well as other parts of the country. So yes, what Chet said is correct. And this is, he may have touched on it, but this is actually a follow-on study to a previous more regional study we did in 2017. And this board, this TPO board, received that study, accepted that, and asked us to go into more detail and to drill down on some of the recommendations that we had. So this study that we're completing now is indeed us doing a deeper dive on a handful of recommendations from that 2017 study, so we could unfold more information and learn more about those few recommendations. So what I'll do today to help my comments, this will be 5 or 10 minutes. I will keep it short. We've created a story map, and I think you've had a link shared with you, but what's on the screen right now is this story map, and I'll just scroll through it and slow down on a thing or two to bring to your attention. So let's see, like Chet said, this is a study to look at access, safety, and operations for an industrial area along the James River near the Bells Road interchange. So we have, it was a collaborative effort. I talked about how it's a follow-on to the previous study. This is the group, these logos you see, this is the group that we had with us throughout the period of time we worked on this study. So it wasn't just the city. There's a regional effect of this area that I'll talk about in a minute. But if you notice what you see here, you see VDOT, the port, of course, the TPO, the city, Chesterfield, and Henrico, and FHWA were all involved with us and helped us as stakeholders. I wanted to make the point about the regional nature. Well, first, I'll show the study area first. So here's the study area, that little polygon on the left side, that surrounds the Bells Road interchange. It's north of Chippenham Parkway, but south of Morey Street along Route 1 and Commerce Road and the Bells Road interchange. So that's the study area. So even though that's technically all within the city, there is definitely a regional impact and regional benefit to focusing on this area. And I wanted to show a graphic that we presented to our group 8 months ago or something. So that little red area in the center of this graphic is our study area. Yes, it's in the city, but if you took trucks, for example, trucks that are going to and coming from this area, less than a quarter of those trucks to that little red area are going to and from the city in other parts of the city. So the activity, the commercial activity, is of benefit to other jurisdictions. I've just picked out Henrico and Chesterfield here in Richmond, but of course the other members of the TPO would also make up additional percentages beyond the numbers that are shown here. But just I just want to pause there and make that point about why might it be of interest to you that this area be improved, even if you're not in the city of Richmond, just because other commercial and industrial goals are being accomplished because of things that are happening, such as the port in this area. So, all right, let me go back. Okay, back to the story map. So long story short, we understand the land use is industrial in nature. The port is a big part of this study area. It's not the only part. There's other growth and improvements and expectations for this area. But the port is a big hub, is a big node there. And Barbara talked about the growth at the port, so I will not retell her story. Like with any transportation study, we looked at crashes, we looked at delay and parts of the network that's shown there on the right side of the screen, if it's functioning well or if it's congested. And we looked at growth rates. These bar graphs shown here show how much intersections in a study area will grow between now and 2045. So there is growth coming to this area. And that is the basis for our work. So queuing, if we don't do anything to this area, this is a zoomed in photograph of the Bells Road interchange, Philip Morris, Altria, those areas. Those arrows represent how much queuing you might expect by the year 2045. Traffic would spill back significantly in this area if we don't do anything to it. So we developed short-term and long-term recommendations. So we looked at several different things for short-term, which are lower cost, I'll call them at grade improvements. And then we looked at some long-term ideas as well. So I'll just focus on the thing. Well, you'll see all the things we looked at for short-term, but I'll just stop and mention the ones that we recommend for advancement or further study. So in this area, here's one recommendation. We call it short-term number one. And keep in mind, this study was not just about the arterial street system, the surface streets. It's also about the interstate and the interchange at Bells Road, exit 69. So this recommendation number one is something that we recommend, and that is an auxiliary lane southbound on 95. What that means is if you come on from Bells Road going southbound, if you come on to I-95 going southbound, you would have an additional lane available to you. It'd be a fourth lane, and it would go all the way down to Chippenham Parkway exit, and it would stop there. So it's a fourth, that's what it's called, an auxiliary lane. That would mirror what's happening on the other side, the northbound side. It's a very effective tool for improving that daily southbound afternoon rush hour problem on I-95, which would help improve access to this area. So that's one recommendation. I'm going to skip past number two, and I'm going to focus on number three, which is on the left side of the screen. Now on the left side of the screen, short-term recommendation number three involves along Commerce Road in front of Subway and before you get to the Bells Road interchange intersection. Imagine, if you look on the left side of the screen, in fact, I can use my pointer, these would be additional lanes. So we can consume some of the median. We could consume some of the median here on this left side, southbound on Commerce, and improve greatly the function, the flow, the queuing issues along Commerce southbound. And it would all be done from the median, so it would not have to take private property or commercial property. So that's a recommendation. That's called concept number three. And we do think that's a good idea. It's not as expensive as something that would require any kind of bridging or any kind of private property. All right, I'm rolling on 3 and 4. I'm going to skip past that. 3 was the winner of that. 5 and 6, I'm not going to dwell on this. 5 and 6 are some other ideas, short-term ideas down at Walmsley and near the new Amazon Fulfillment Center and Brother International. We did not recommend this. It's not a bad idea, but we think the impacts are too challenging. But it would be a way of improving that intersection and moving some left turns out of the main intersection. So we did not have that as a recommendation. All right, short-term number 7. This is the last short-term concept and one that we did recommend. So if you look on the left side of the screen, you see we call it the ramp termini of the Bells Road interchange. That's how people would come off of I-95 from north and south, how they would come off of the interstate and get to Commerce Road. So this is just some clever ways to improve the function of that ramp termini area. If you've ever driven that, you know that it gets really congested and busy and complicated and confusing at the base of this ramp right here as you're trying to decide where to put your vehicle, your truck, or your car. So this would clean up the function of that area and make it safer and more efficient, which would be a positive. So we do recommend that. So I listed 3 things: short-term concept number 1, number 3, and number 7. So that there's a matrix. I won't go through it with costs and benefits and right-of-way requirements, things like that. So 1, 3, and 7 from the short term is what we recommend. Those are well suited for smart scale type applications. So if the region wants to pursue those, or the city, those could be teed up as smart scale in the future. I mentioned earlier, we also looked at long-term concepts. I just have a couple here, and then we'll be done. Long-term is intended to be higher impact, better, more positive impact, but more expensive, because these involve things that are more, have some right-of-way or some grade separation. So the first one, long-term concept number 1, is something that we recommend as a positive, and that is a roundabout and some other improvements. I've talked a little bit about some of the other improvements. A roundabout at that intersection of Walmsley and Commerce. That's the ramp termini of the interchange. This is the Bells Road interchange over here. And this is where it all comes down to Commerce. So this would, and we've checked all of this with, could trucks make these movements, and can they navigate this roundabout, and how would it work under future traffic like 2045? And it does work very well. So that's an idea that could be considered by the region. Number 2, this is not one we recommend, but I'll make a point while this is on the screen. The Bells Road interchange doesn't allow any direct access to the east. So from the Bells Road interchange, you cannot get easily over to a Deepwater Terminal, to the port, to the other businesses and industrial operations that are along Deepwater Terminal. It's a real convoluted, circuitous route to get from I-95 over to that corridor along the river. So we looked at several ideas, and this is one of them, concept number 2, to allow traffic to flow directly from the interchange to Deepwater Terminal Road. This one, we think, from a geometric standpoint, would be too difficult from a vertical profile standpoint. But here's another one that we do think could hold up. We call it long-term concept number 3. So if you look at this graphic on the left, this is the interchange, the Bells Road interchange is over here. And this is Deepwater Terminal. So this line work you see, these lines that have been drawn in here with a computer, are ways that you could get to and from the interchange, to and from the interstate directly from Deepwater Terminal Road, which accesses many, many businesses up and down, including the port, but not only the port. So this is one we think would deserve further study. It does end up being part of our recommendation to you and to the reader of the report. It could be bundled with that first one I talked about, number 1. So you see a zoomed out thing here where you see on the right that idea. Now you can probably get more context of what is this, how is this working? You've got this improvement, this modification to the interchange, and over here you've got this roundabout, and then you've got a real nice collective effect there for operations and safety and travel time, just-in-time delivery, things like that. So those are recommendations from us, by the way, 3 and 1. Here's another one that we don't recommend. It's just brainstorming, another way, another mousetrap of how to deal with that interchange being limited currently. And finally, there were 2 things we looked at that were kind of a little bit different than the others I've talked about. Local connector ideas. At a request of the group, of the stakeholder group, we poked into this idea. Walmsley Boulevard has a gap, has a missing link there. Walmsley Boulevard by title, by name, exists over by the Bells Road interchange right here, and Walmsley exists over here, but there's no connection. There probably was intended to be at one point, but there's no connection because there'd be a bridge over the railroad. So it's just money probably. So we poked into what would happen if we made that connection. It would probably, what we think it would do is create more of a grid system in this whole area, which is always a good thing. A grid system is almost always a good thing for circulation and minimizing total travel distance and stuff. But it needs a champion. So we didn't recommend it. We didn't say it was bad, but we put it out there as something that if there's a champion, we've started the thinking about that. Final thing I've got is one more connector idea. Earlier, Barbara talked about an extra drop lot at the entrance to the port, just outside the gate. There's an opportunity here in this graphic for local connector concept number 2. There is an underpass under the interstate, and you can see it in these pictures. Here's a picture and here's zoomed in. There's a little underpass there, but you could, a vehicle could go under there. Right now it's not allowed, it's fenced off, but it's possible with a real estate arrangement or an easement or something. It's possible that the port could get permission to use that, and they could shuttle materials, containers back and forth, and possibly have another drop lot or some other function over here to give them a second entrance, because they only have one entrance. The port only has the one. So that puts a lot of pressure. There's no redundancy. The resiliency is in question there. So to have just one. So this gives the port flexibility, would give the port flexibility for off hours operations and things like that, or emergency operations if there was some kind of spill or some type of issue at the main gate security wise. So we do recommend concept number 2, the group does, as a good idea that worthy of further attention. Okay, so I know that's a lot. That is whoops, I'm fast forwarding too much. That's the summary of what this study concluded. And so we have a draft report I think you've been given a copy of it. And there's a little table, I keep doing that. There's a little table of our recommendations: short-term 1, 3, 7, long-term 1 and 3, and local connector 2. So this is one short-term 1, 3, and 7. I mentioned earlier, they could be smart scale ready at any time. They're pretty close to being ready for an application if someone wanted to pick those up and run with it. Long-term, the other 3, the longer term ideas would need further project development, further investigation, permitting, things like that. So that could still be done. We're actually working from money that Barbara was able to get from RSTP as a grant, and there's money left over. So we could continue on and roll into some of these, like the long-term ideas, with money that's available already, which is always nice. That's not usually the case. But I believe that there's a resolution in front of the board to accept this work, this study that's been done. So I don't know if it's Madam Chair or Chet that wants to take it from here, but that's my understanding.
Thank you, sir, for your presentation. Indeed, I was again reviewing the agenda. I don't see it in there, but Mr. Parsons, do you want to make any further comments?
Yes, ma'am. We do have on the screen the staff report and the recommendations from the technical committee in front of you. This was added to the agenda, and as you can see, the TAC recommendation is that the TPO TAC reviewed the proposed I-95 RMT Commerce Road Corridor Access Study at their meeting on October 13th, 2020, and recommends adoption as presented. The action was unanimous by the TAC, and the resolution presented for Policy Board review and approval is that the Richmond Regional Transportation Planning Organization, RRTPO, adopts the I-95 RMT Commerce Road Corridor Access Study. Be happy to take any questions. I'm sure Mr. Prideaux or Ms. Nelson are able to address questions as well.
Do we have any questions from the board members?
I have one, Madam Chairman, Ms. O'Bannon. Is this the resolution is to accept the entire Commerce Road Corridor Access Study? That's what we've just seen, the whole thing.
Yes, ma'am. The presentation that you just saw is the accompanying presentation, but it mirrors the written report that was
Will
sent
we
out to
in the
everyone.
future settle on some of the recommendations that he made, you know, rather than all of it? I mean, I assume there's going to be more that comes up, obviously.
Absolutely.
We'll do that.
Yes, I think this is a great tool to have if the board chooses to adopt it, and then we can take next steps and look at individual recommendations and next steps. One of the things that I can highlight, and I don't know if Mr. Riblet can verify today, but the auxiliary lane on I-95 that Mr. Prideaux mentioned early on, I believe was included in the I-95 regional study that VDOT is working on right now. So I think that's something that is already in action and is being considered under other circumstances.
Madam Chair, just a quick question for Mr. Parsons, Cynthia Newville.
Yes, Dr. Newville.
Yes, I just want to make sure I've been following through. I received email. It is the 38-page document. That's the only, there's nothing else, just that 38-page document that I've been scrolling through with you, that we're referencing here.
Yes, ma'am. I believe that is correct.
That's right.
Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure there wasn't any additional that I did not have. Thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Supervisor Holland. Do we have a timeline in terms of, I know we have short-term and long-term. Do we have a timeline in terms of implementation? If we were to do that, chat, and what would be the cost analysis of such an implementation process?
Yes, sir. Great question, Mr. Holland. I think that the next steps, this is considered a planning level study. So I think the next steps would be to look at all the tools available for implementation, and if the TPO has preferences on which projects to prioritize, that's the discussion for the TPO to have. I think the availability of CBTA funds is certainly an option for implementation, as well as future smart scale in 2 years. I don't think we don't have the time to work that into the cycle right now, but I think that as well as any RSTP funds could be used for additional engineering studies to come up with the exact costs of some of these programs. So this is essentially the first step in getting those priorities set, and then we take the next steps in actually looking at the nitty-gritty PE right-of-way construction costs and how to move it forward in the engineering and construction phases.
Thank you very much. This probably would be a very high priority item study because of the growth in containers. I mean, 41,000 containers removed from I-64 is certainly quite significant in terms of cost savings, environmental impact, as well as the continued utilization of the port. So that I would imagine would receive high priority in terms of smart scale and other mechanisms.
Madam Chair, this is Barbara Nelson. May I make a comment or two?
Yes, Ms. Nelson.
Thank you. I just wanted to add to Mr. Holland's comment about the volume of containers, and it is information that's included in the details of the story map as well as the draft planning report. But we project that the volume of container growth at the port by 2040, 2045 will grow to over 120,000 containers. And the geometrics of this interchange are seriously challenged. It's part of the old Richmond-Petersburg Turnpike, and moving that amount of cargo plus the dimensions of trucks today through that area is a significant challenge. And the port, when the port made the application and the TPO approved the RSTP funds to advance this study, it was following, as everyone said, the 2017 Commerce Corridor study. We didn't want to let the projects sit on the shelf, wanted to make sure they moved forward. And so your action today would conclude the first phase of what was funded in that element. There's a second component that would allow for additional analysis of the interchange so that it could really be well positioned to compete for other funds. We understand that transportation dollars are highly competitive, they're oversubscribed, transportation funding resources are really challenged. And the port has worked and has been successful in receiving a federal build grant for one of our terminals in the Front Royal area. We just recently received a $20 million port infrastructure development grant for rail investments, partnering with funds from DRPT at our Norfolk International Terminal here in Hampton Roads. And we can commit to working with all the partners in the region and the Commonwealth to bring as many resource support and competing for other dollars to make these investments, especially the interstate investments, move forward. But so count on us as being a supporting planning partner. We don't have the money, but we do. We can work hard to find the money, and so look forward to supporting this as it continues forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Barb. Appreciate that.
Are there any more questions? I realize, and I guess I can ask you, Mr. Parsons. So just to be clear, if this is adopted, then the TPO then can come back and prioritize the different projects before they move forward.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. If there are no more questions or discussions, the chair will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Supervisor Holland. I move that we adopt the study and move expeditiously to implement short-term and thus long-term infrastructure improvements as presented today. And also, I'll stop there, but I had one question about more utilization for maybe commercial or use for individuals that might travel as well from the port to Norfolk via this mechanism. Barb, this is something you could comment on, but that's my motion.
Madam Chair, David Williams, Powhatan County. I second Mr. Holland's motion.
Thank you. We had a motion and a second. Nicole, will you please poll the members, please?
Yes, ma'am. The board will not be voting on item B2, the adoption of the I-95 RMT Commerce Corridor Access Study. Town of Ashland, Mr. Hodges.
Aye.
Chesterfield County, Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Holland.
Aye.
Mr. Winslow.
Aye.
Goochland County, Mr. Lumpkins.
Aye.
Hanover County, Mr. Peterson. Is Mr. Peterson still with us? Moving on, Henrico County, Ms. O'Bannon.
Aye.
Mr. Thornton.
I see a thumbs up.
From who? From who, Chet?
Mr. Thornton.
Okay, excellent. New Kent.
I concur.
New Kent County, Ms. Page.
Aye.
Powhatan County, Mr. Williams.
Aye.
City of Richmond, Ms. Newbill.
Aye.
GRTC Transit System, Ms. Tim.
Aye.
RMTA, Ms. Dean.
Aye.
Secretary of Transportation Designee, Mr. Ribled.
Aye.
And I would like to circle back to Hanover County, Mr. Peterson.
I am back now. I don't know how I got lost on this thing, but aye.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. This concludes the roll call for item B2.
Thank you. Moving on to item C1, which is our transportation agency updates. We will first hear from VDOT, followed by DRPT.
Good morning. Just want to give a quick update. CTB meeting in October. Commonwealth Transportation Board discussed assumptions for updates to the future 6-year plan modifications that will be later this year. There was a presentation on how to potentially improve cost estimating and bidding results. Certainly a study that VDOT has been spending a significant amount of time on. And there was also a presentation on the I-64, 664 study and the public involvement results that are coming out of that effort. As of today, there is no November meeting identified on the CTB's website, but that is likely going to change. We are anticipating that there will be a November 24th CTB meeting. So as we have additional information on that, we'll certainly make sure that Chet and folks have that to share. Following that, we also expect a December CTB workshop and action meeting as well. No change from last time on Smart Scale. Very involved with all locality representatives as well as VDOT staff working on validating and scoring the applications that were submitted. We do expect that process will be completed next month with discussions before the CTB after the first of the year. We do anticipate updates to the 6-year plan, not a full update as we would have in normal non-COVID years, but we do expect that we'll see more information discussed before the CTB regarding revenue projections, estimates for what may be available for the FY22 to 27 6-year plan. Those discussions are expected to be in the upcoming CTB meetings. We will see updates to the 6-year plan for revenue sources like revenue sharing, transportation alternatives, and the RSTP and CMAQ actions that are being taken by MPOs across the state are certainly being included as well. Development of the next 6-year plan certainly will begin after the first of the year, and hopefully we'll be back on a more typical schedule. The studies that are underway on I-95, 85, 64, and 295, no significant changes from our discussion last time, and we also do not have any public meetings on specific projects. We have some study meetings, anticipated virtual public hearing November 21st for the I-64, 664 corridor improvement plan. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Being no questions, we will move on to DRPT, and thank you for the presentation, Mr. Riplett.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Updates from DRPT are quite similar to what Mr. Riblett shared from VDOT. We did publish our draft fiscal year 21 6-year program update. It's on our website and it's out there for public comment. Unlike VDOT, we do an annual application cycle for the transit agencies and the commuter assistance agencies. So doing a 6-year program update for us is really critical. The draft document that you'll see out on our webpage does focus our allocations for fiscal year 21 on projects that are needed by our transit agencies to sustain operations in fiscal year 21. So that is operating assistance and critical capital projects that we know are going to move forward based on a readiness evaluation that our staff did this fall. For us, it is a very different document than what we normally produce because it does reflect a single year of allocations and it does not include a 5-year capital or operating plan looking ahead. But we do anticipate that those items will be included in the FY 22 through 27 6-year improvement program that we take to the board next year. We do anticipate approval of our draft fiscal year 21 6-year program by the CTB in December so that we can move those operating allocations and capital projects forward. As we're attempting to wrap up fiscal year 21's allocation process, it is time for us to start our application cycle for fiscal year 22. We are going to open that application cycle on our regular schedule, which would be December 1st, and it does remain open through February 1st. We are going to do workshops this year that will be a combination of reviewing the fiscal 21 award process and also the fiscal 22 application process. Those workshops are shown there on your screen. We have a human service transportation workshop on November 17th. I neglected to include it, but on November 20th, we do have a coordinated human service mobility planning workshop for the Central Region. That is a requirement for agencies that are seeking funding through the human service transportation programs. And then on December 1st, we'll have a public transportation and special programs workshop in the morning, followed by a commuter assistance and special programs workshop in the afternoon. Moving on to rail, Director Mitchell certainly sends her regrets for being unable to join the TPO today. She is actually in DC working with Amtrak to continue to advance the landmark Transforming Rail in Virginia program of projects. So we're looking forward to having her with us next month to give you a more thorough update on where we are with that initiative in the Virginia Passenger Rail Authority. But we are continuing to work on standing up the authority and to complete the agreements that are necessary to continue to advance transforming rail in Virginia. The Passenger Rail Authority did hold its inaugural meeting on October 26th, and there is all kinds of information on the VPRA or on DRPT's webpage currently. That the link is there in your update this month. And that concludes my report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions? Being none, we thank you so much for your updates today. Moving on to
Madam Chair.
Yes,
Madam
sir.
Chair, I have a question for Mr. Mule, please. You mentioned the last part of the 5310 funds and all the workshop. Did you say that anybody who's working with it has to attend that workshop, or is it informational?
Yeah, so the workshop that's on the 17th, Mr. Peterson, I'm sure you're asking about Hanover Dash. I would strongly encourage the folks from Hanover Dash and Hanover County to participate both in the November 17th application workshop and the November 20th coordinated human service mobility planning workshop as they prepare to submit an application for funding in fiscal year 22.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to other business. D1 is our public comment period, which is now open. Have we received any comments, Mr. Parsons or Nicole?
No additional comments have been received, Madam Chair.
Okay, hearing none, we will close our public comment period. D2 is our future meeting topics. Are there any topics that the board would like on our agenda? If so, please comment on it at this time. Okay, since there are no comments, we will move to D3, which is our TPO member comments. Now we'll entertain any comments from our TPO members. Thank you. Item 4 is our next meeting, which is scheduled for December the 3rd, 2020. As we noted earlier and voted on, our December meeting will be for the policy board at 8:30 a.m. We will not have a December 3rd executive meeting. So that will be sent out and on a calendar, and on the calendar, we will include the virtual link for Zoom. So all of that will be sent out with your calendar invite for December the 3rd. At this time,
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I do have the update from Mr. Winslow. If everyone has 5 minutes, I can jump through that and talk about the vision and goals.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we have, this was shared with our long range plan advisory committee. when they met in October. We had a vision and goals and strategy survey that was sent out, and we used the MetroQuest platform. Hopefully, a number of you were able to participate. The gray box on the screen is what that platform looked like, and it's really a neat tool to use to engage the public and ask directed questions about whatever part of the process that you're working on. So that survey went live on August 25th, and we closed it on October 11th. We had almost 1,000 folks complete the survey, so we're thrilled about the response. And if we've learned one thing during the COVID era, it's that having multiple ways for people to engage is definitely a plus for us as a TPO. It certainly beats just having a night meeting and asking folks to show up in person. So we're looking forward to the opportunity over the next year to continue virtual opportunities for engagement, but to combine those with in-person as well. And we had a great representative geographic response. Everything that is shaded in some form of orange or red, we had responses. So the darker the color, the more responses there were. So great response from all 9 of our jurisdictions, and we're excited about the willingness of everyone to participate. And this is data by zip code, so some areas are going to be larger geographically than others. Some breakdowns of the responses by age group and by race and ethnicity. The majority of folks were in the 31 to 60 range. The gray is 31 to 40 there on the top of the screen. And then we weren't exactly satisfied by the distribution of race and ethnicity. Most people that responded were identified as white or Caucasian. We did have responses from other identified race and ethnicity groups, but we want to continue to investigate ways to engage other members of our community that may not be involved in this kind of process and want to learn more. So that's a growth area for us as the TPO, and we're going to focus on that a lot more in the next year. So we had a number of goals that we asked people to rank, and the outcomes of the survey in terms of ranking the goals are displayed on your screen right here. The number 1 item was safety. And if you go down the list, I'll read it through quickly. Safety, then health and equity, connectivity, and accessibility. They're somewhat interchangeable, but there's some unique identifiers there. Environment was the next one, and that's there in the yellow. Economic vitality, maintenance and operations, and then finally resiliency. And it's really interesting to note that congestion relief is grouped there under maintenance and operations. We've had a number of different survey tools out in the past 9 months, and congestion never really bubbled to the top in terms of folks' concerns across the region. So it's an interesting factor that we're listening to as we move forward. Safety by far has been the number 1 concern of most people, and obviously commuting patterns are different this year, so that may have had an impact on how people responded to a survey. So we're keeping that in mind as we move forward. If you break the goals down further, we had a number of objectives listed under each goal, and this information is here. I'm not going to read through each one, but for example, safety, we had different objectives like evacuation routes, safety investments, Vision Zero objectives, injuries and fatalities, and then just overall system safety. And people rank those according to their preference and their priorities. We had an opportunity in the same survey for people to draft their own vision statements for the region, and we had over 260 entries in terms of people submitting their own vision statements. So one of the things that we're doing with, and on the screen is just a sample of some of the responses that we got, but one of the things we're doing with our advisory committee, which, if you remember, is a subset of this policy board. They are overseeing the development of the long-range plan, and will bring back recommendations to you as we move through the next 9 months. But this advisory committee, we're workshopping with them the different vision and goals and objective strategies and the wording, the how everything is written for the long range plan. And through that advisory committee, we're going to come up with a recommended set of vision, goals, and strategies, and that'll be forthcoming in the next month or two. And then we did, like I said, we did an interactive session with that group. So I think the things to bring away from this is we had great participation. We understand what the priorities of the survey respondents were. We're working through that now with the advisory committee, and the advisory committee is made up of technical staff from each of the member jurisdictions, as well as key stakeholders from the community that were identified. The advisory committee, I believe, is about 45 folks who have been very active since we started this process about a year ago now. So we're looking forward to continuing that work and to bringing back to the TAC and the policy board recommendations over the next year. The next steps for this advisory committee and the long range plan process are to get more in depth on how to the project prioritization tools and the ways to identify rankings of different projects that have started to be available and bubble up to the surface. So that is going to be of utmost importance to you, as well as the Central Virginia Transportation Authority, as we start to look at how to prioritize project needs and make those aware to the public and start to again get feedback on those. So, Madam Chair, that's my quick update. We'll certainly be able to provide more updates in the future. I don't know if Mr. Winslow has any other questions, or if that helped to address his concerns from the beginning of the meeting.
Madam Chair, thank you. Chet, thank you. As we look to engage with the public, I thought this was a good chance to just get a little bit of a flavor of what we were hearing in terms of transportation needs and desires. And so I really appreciate this update. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
More welcome. Mr. Parsons, is this presentation one that you can send to our members via email?
It is. We have all of our meetings on YouTube now. If people have, I'll do a plug. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so, and we can provide other opportunities for people to engage. But we can certainly share the presentation, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. Are there any further questions, discussions at this time? Okay, since I hear none, this meeting of our TPO November 5th will stand adjourned. Thank all of you. Be safe.
Thank you.